We have this amazing panel here today. I feel so fortunate to be up here with all of you because I admire your work. And I'd love to hear, all of you are very involved in various projects, human trafficking, animal rights, and women's prison initiatives. I'd love to hear how you got involved in this. What sort of drew you to these projects to begin with?
Oh, I get to start. I'll start by saying I know nothing about Spanx, even though I'm a woman. So I got involved with the Women's Prison Association because I was on a TV show about women's prison. I had always felt like the prison system in America is not something that I could touch or talk about because I have no personal experience, and yet it was something that was so hideously wrong to me. When I got on the show, I felt a call to action, and I chose the Women's Prison Association because Piper, who wrote the book, was very involved with them, and I love what they do. They really help give women tools, both when they're in prison and when they're coming out, to decrease recidivism, and then they also really help the families of women in prison, and most specifically the children. And again, that's about decreasing recidivism. So I did a lot of initiatives that I'm not going to talk too long about, but one thing I do want to say is an easy thing that I can talk about is I created a piece of jewelry, and 100% of the proceeds went back to the Women's Prison Association. I created it in collaboration with Kira Jewelry, and it not only created awareness, so when people saw it in magazines or saw it when you wore it, it told a story. But then it also raised a lot of funds for the Women's Prison Association.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Mamie?
Well, I guess I've always been socially conscious. I was raised by a very socially aware woman who has done a lot to kind of give back in every way that she can. And so I grew up looking at that as an example, and she would take me to various things, and I, through that, started working professionally and making money and figuring out, okay, well, what do I do with it? Because it doesn't feel right to just keep it all to myself when so many people have so little. And I started working with Equality Now, and through them met Alyssa and Diana, and they founded the NOMI Network, which is a wonderful organization that I support now just by being here.
And could you tell us a little bit about it and what you've done with them?
Yeah, so they, what's unique about NOMI is that they kind of get to the heart and the root causes of it's human trafficking, and that's poverty and the lack of economic access and the pressures that puts on people and makes them incredibly vulnerable to this just monstrous industry. It's a horrendous practice, and they are working primarily in rural India and Cambodia, and they set up, it's a training the trainer kind of a program where they teach these women skills so that they can manufacture, they can build these bags and various accessories that are then sold online.
I'm gonna add for a moment, because is Jessica Hendricks in the house? Is Jessica in the, okay, so stand up, Jessica. So Jessica works with, started an organization called the Brave Collection, which I'm wearing, and she works with girls in Cambodia who used to be in sex trafficking. And similarly, I met her at the White House, I guess, and similar to my initiative, like, she did this so that when you wear it, you tell the story, and some of the proceeds go back to women in Cambodia.
The wonderful thing about NOMI is that it's named after this 8-year-old girl who was a victim of the sex trade, and her name NOMI is N-O-M-I, but it's also synonymous for know me, and it's like, see this, know her. And I guess in that same sort of a vein, if people know me and recognize me, then they can know me too, know her.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And I designed a bag also, a line of bags. They're called Willow Wares, and I think that there are cards in some bags that you all got that for pre-orders on that, because the holidays are coming.
Right. Well, Leona, I was really struck by talking to you yesterday about your passion for animals, and also, just how this started when you were a child. Tell us about how you got into, campaigning for animal rights.
First of all, I wanted to say I know everything about Spanx and I love them. So I have a couple of projects that are really close to my heart, and one is Hopefield Animal Sanctuary, which is a sanctuary that I have in the UK. And we started off as a horse rescue sanctuary, and now we have over 200 animals. But the really important issue to me is that at the sanctuary, it's not just an animal issue, it's a human issue. We have a lot of volunteers that come to the sanctuary, and I grew up in London, and as a city kid I wasn't really exposed to being around a lot of animals, and on the weekends my mum would take me to the countryside just so that I would be around nature and horses and farm animals. So I guess that's where I kind of found my love for them. But a lot of the volunteers that come in, they don't have any contact with animals, so we see such a change in the kids that come and work with us, and even just people that just want a bit of an escape, we get them to work and rehabilitate some of the horses there. And it's not just rehabilitating them, it's rehabilitating the people that come into contact with them. So that's why I love working with animals, because it really affects us as humans as well. And another thing that's really close to my heart is a campaign that I started a little while ago called Empower Month. And basically, as someone who's in music and can speak about different issues, I would get a lot of people writing to me and talking about different obstacles that they've been through in their lives, and how listening to lyrics in my music has kind of helped them, or how they're relating to it in some way. So I started sharing these stories on my websites and social media, and just kind of started a campaign to empower people through sharing those stories. So it's just about highlighting issues that I guess all of us can highlight, because we have that platform to do so, and I think it's important that we all speak on it if we can.
Now, this panel is all about giving voice to the voiceless, and all of you lead very busy, fabulous lives. Why is that important to you that you do this? But also, how do we encourage other women, other people out there to do the same, no matter how busy you are?
No one's that busy. It's not so hard to just open your eyes and ears and just stay a feeling citizen. I think it enriches our work, certainly, to know these stories and the truth, not to get caught up in the kind of more fanciful, very ephemeral, the fleeting things.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say, for me, when I'm of service, when I'm doing work that is of service, my time expands. It's like it is like physics changes. That's just the truth of my existence, is when I am spending time in service, I suddenly have more time. It just, if you think that something is important and you give your time to it, there is enough time for it. It just, that's the way it happens.
Yeah, I agree. I just make time. It's just part of what I do daily, so you just have to
It's very, very gratifying.
And maybe you brought up an interesting point about how it enriches your work. Do you find that your work in these areas bleed back into your creative work, enhances it in any way?
Well, for me as a songwriter, definitely enhances my work. You're digging deep into your soul to produce music, and I don't know, connecting with people and highlighting these different issues that are going on, and like you said, opening up your eyes to it, it definitely affects my work personally.
Yeah, I think as an actor, what we do essentially is defend people. You know, you defend the character that you're playing, and so likewise, to keep that alive, that drive to defend others is vital.
Yeah. I to add to that, like, I feel like no one ever thinks they're a bad person. You know, like as someone who plays a villain on TV, like Fig doesn't think she's a bad person. She really thinks she's doing the best she can. And I think for me, my job as a vessel, like be it with song or acting, is to stay open. Like that's my job. And being of service breaks me open and sort of reminds me that the sort of social media of the world and the pictures of the world and all of that falseness is in fact falseness, and that what it's really about is human beings connecting and helping each other and being of service to one another. And that's what life is about, and that's what my art hopefully is about, you know. So
now for each of you, was there a moment where you know, sort of an aha moment where you sort of felt like, well, you know, I'm really empathizing right now, or this is why I do it? You know, some story you heard, or an anecdote, or, you know, something where you felt like this makes it worth it.
I will jump in and say, for me, when I remember being a kid and watching your mom talk about agar, like a herbicide on apples.
Oh, yeah, Mothers and Others.
Yeah, and it was so, she really impacted change. Like there was a huge change in what we put on our food, and that made me an environmentalist. Like that made me a huge, like I work with Healthy Child, Healthy World now, and I do a lot of environmental stuff as well. And that was my aha moment, was this person who I would watch in movies and who I so admired speaking up for something she so believed in, and that empowered me to feel like, oh, I can do that about things I believe in. I can impact change. Like she really changed what we put on our food in a massive way, and that totally inspired me.
Yeah, organic wasn't really a thing.
There was no organic. I mean, when we were kids, no way. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I guess I was just always instilled with that in my upbringing, and I thought I was going to be like Christiana Amanpour or something, you know, but that didn't happen. So just doing what I can with what I got.
Yeah. Well, have you met some of the women that these organizations have helped, and has there been a moment where you're like, oh, well, you know, I can really see what I'm doing, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't gone over there, but Diana and Alyssa keep me updated on everything. Diana just got back, and I always get these updates actually on Nomi, who's now like a teenager, and that's always really heartening. And then there are other things that are really troubling and hard to. There was a girl, the daughter of one of the most promising trainers, was killed recently, and so the local officials they were reluctant to actually investigate it because of the pressure that we were able to put on from Nomi, now they are going through with the investigation. Yeah, so that's
That's terrific. That's good. And Luna?
I spoke about it a bit earlier, but I had last year, well, I've had a lot of moments, but last year I got a letter written to me by someone who had been listening to an album that I did, and they basically, it was a young guy, and he had an eating disorder, and he'd been hiding it for a long time because there's obviously a certain amount of taboo with males having eating disorders, and he didn't really speak up on it. But he decided to write to me and to talk to me about it, and then he let me know that he would listen to the music and it had helped kind of empower him. So I shared that story, and And I went on to a radio station in the UK and spoke about it. And just, I don't know, hearing these stories and people writing to me and just wanting to connect with me is just amazing. And to be able to share stories and hopefully, you know, other people will come out and be helped by his story and feel that, yeah, it's not something that I need to be ashamed of. I can seek help and I can, you know, seek help. So that was important for me, I guess.
Now, have any of you had to take sort of a hard stand on things sometimes? You know, I love the story about Leona and Herod's, and how you refused to make an appearance there because they carry fur, or but have any of you sort of had to kind of be take a hard stand on anything like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, the Harrods thing.
It was basically just I'm against fur, obviously being an animal activist. So I just feel that, you know, anything that morally that you're against, you're not going to be a part of. So I was asked to do an event with them, and then I kind of took a stand against it. But you know, there's certain times when you can make a stand and it does make a difference, and then there's certain times where it takes a little bit of coaxing. So, you know, hopefully one day it will kind of turn around.
And
no. I'm a really strong person that way on TV, but I've never done that in real life. I'm like the crier more than the badass in real life, I have to admit. Like, but you know, I will fight for what I believe in, but I've never had the opportunity to do something so courageous. So.
I take hard stances all the time. I just don't know whether anyone's to where, you know, I haven't publicly, I don't think, ever had an opportunity to take anyone down, but I will. I'd love to.
Now, what are your goals or your hopes for these projects you're involved in? You know, when you look 5 or 10 years down the road, you know, what is your hope for these groups and the people you're trying to help, or the animals?
The bags that we have out now, the Willowware bags, they were made in Bihar by women who 2.5 years ago didn't know how to write their own name or, you know, use a ruler. So with that kind of progress, I just can only hope that it continues, and that you know, and that we can adopt a similar model in other areas and maybe even domestically.
Yeah.
I'm hoping my sanctuary, I'm hoping to grow it and to grow our volunteers and to also, again, like I said, it's a human issue as well.
So hopefully if we can kind of open up more sanctuaries, help more people as well, and animals in the local community. So that's where we're focusing really, the local communities, helping rehabilitate the animals and hopefully helping people through that as well.
And how big is your sanctuary now? I think you mentioned you have 200 horses.
We've got about 70 horses, we've got over 200 animals, we've got about 50 volunteers that come in and out, but 5 staff that are there constantly. But the volunteers are what's amazing, like for us, you know, that they're giving their time and coming down and like helping these animals out, and it's amazing to see.
I think around Women's Prison Association, our goals are to create more and more services for women, both in prison and when they first come out, and for their families. And that's my goal with that on a daily basis, and then seeing how that can spread. I've also been outrageously inspired by Orange and what it's done in reference to women and changing the playing field for women in the industry. So I started a production company that's called Broad Street Pictures, that's for more women behind and in front of the camera and telling more women's stories, because I think the more we see women's stories, the more regular that becomes. I also work with the Gina Davis Institute a lot, which is all about the statistical significance of the fact that we see 77% of the human beings we see in media are male. So by nature, every time you see anything, you're seeing yourself as a minority, if you're a woman. So our first movie, Equity, is we just wrapped and we're working on now. So hopefully you'll see.
Next year, right?
We'll see. We'll see what happens to it. Hopefully in a theater near you soon. But yeah, hopefully in a festival soon. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because it sort of fits in with everything we're talking about today. It's celebrating a character.
It's the first ever female-driven Wall Street movie. So yeah, which is kind of cool. And we have an amazing investor group, one of which is a woman named Janice Ellig, who runs a nonprofit that's all about getting more women on boards. And honestly, we have some of the coolest women on the planet as our investors, who are like our women of banking. And we interviewed hundreds of women to create this story, and then we hired an amazing writer named Amy Fox and an amazing director named Mira Menon, and we just shot this summer, and I truly came straight from the edit room, and I was telling Wendy yesterday, like, I wish I could be at more of the day, but I would be a bad female entrepreneur if I missed my day in the edit to, sit listening to you amazing people, because I have to finish this in time. So it's exciting. It's a really exciting time.
And is this something you hope might spark some change?
The reason we wrote it and created it was fully to incite change. It's interesting in the edit now because it's not a happy story, and we didn't quite know how unhappy a story it was until we watched it. But it's a true story. It's based on a lot of women's true stories, and that is our deepest hope, is that it does move the needle.
Well, to sort of wrap things up a little bit, we talked about how I asked you about whether the work that you've done bleeds into your creative work, whether it has in the past. What about going forward? Does it, do your experiences meeting the people that you have through these organizations, through your group, has that changed how you think about what projects to take on, or what your priorities are, or your songwriting, for example?
Well, just for me, being here today is so inspiring. I've met a ton of amazing women, so I'm already thinking about 10,000 songs that I can write about that. But yeah, I think it's all about just, like you said, moving the needle, keep progressing, keep breaking barriers, and that's definitely going to bleed into my music.
I'm going to the theater now to playing a war vet burn victim, which feels like a great privilege to do, but it's certainly of service, and it feels much bigger than me, and and I'll carry all of this with me.
Yeah, I think telling women's stories and being the voice of the unvoiced is one of the greatest privileges you can have as an artist. Mm-hmm. I just feel blessed to be here.
Well, thank you very much for your
time. Thank you.